So if you're looking to plan your next family vacation or adventure, consider booking a cruise. But if you're like us, you're probably thinking, well, the only really times we have to go on a cruise with the family is during the peak time. So we're talking about winter break, spring break, etc. And we're oftentimes wondering, is it too crowded to actually go? Because they're oftentimes going to be booked at full capacity. Well, we just got off of Wonders of the Seas with Royal Caribbean, a family of 5 during this recent spring break. And we're going to go over in this video a full review of what the ship was like at full capacity. This is the second largest ship in the entire world, housing about 7,000 guests. And we got there with a full capacity ship. And so let's get into what it's like riding Wonders of the Seas at full capacity. Cue the intro.
What's up, YouTube? Trevi from the Adventure Buddies, the modern travel family, bringing you another video filled with tips, tricks, and inspiration to make sure you maximize your next family adventure, like we always do here at the Adventure Buddies.
So the first tip we want to get you before we get into our overall review of the ship at full capacity is that if you are going during a peak time, pay special attention to when you can actually check in. Typically with most Royal Caribbean times, that's going to be 120 days prior to your actual ship date. And so that's going to be important for you to book certain activities, certain special dining. We'll get into that later in the video, but that's going to be the most important tip that you can do if you're thinking your ship is even closely remote to full capacity. So the next thing that you should be worried about when going on a cruise that is nearing full capacity, such like Wonder of the Seas at 7,000 guests, is that we were worried about the check-in process or embarkation. So the day that we actually got to the port, dropped off our luggage, and was going through the actual check-in process to get on the ship. We thought that was going to take forever. However, we were pleasantly surprised. From the time that we dropped off our bags to the time we were sitting poolside, 15 minutes. And so we were able to breeze through the lines. We were able to get all of our safety checks done. And we were in the pool within 15 minutes on being on ship. So we were super impressed with this process, but there are a number of things you need to do ahead of time. So again, pay attention. If you want more tips on what you need to know before going on a Royal Caribbean cruise, click our link above here. The other thing that we were super worried about with being at a full capacity cruise is that once we dropped our luggage off, when are we actually going to get it back? We were thinking, hey, what do we need to cram in our backpack or carry on and keep with us? And so you should always keep your pool stuff with you so you can enjoy the pool before the big crowds get there. But we were wondering, when can we even get into our stateroom? So they often said, oh, you can get in there at 1:30 p.m. And they were right. And so at 1:30 exactly, we were able to get into our stateroom and our luggage was already there. So we were super impressed by how efficient the embarkation or check-in process was. And then our luggage delivery was right in the room at the time they said it, no matter how many people were on board. So super impressed with how Royal Caribbean was able to manage the embarkation or check-in process at full capacity. So next and probably most important, let's talk about all these ship amenities. Can I actually get to do the things and activities that they highlight on the website during a cruise that's actually at full capacity? And the short answer, yes. And so there will be some lines, but let's talk about how you can minimize some of the wait time and set yourself up for great success on ship activities. So the first tip on how to manage a full capacity ship and get all the ship activities done is headed to the pool early. So we suggest you wake up early, especially on days of the seas, to book or reserve your actual seats at the pool. So you're not allowed to do this, but they don't enforce it either. So I was the one who drew the unlucky straw, got up at 6 a.m., took our stuff to our chairs at the pool and reserved it for the entire day, no problem. So if you don't and you do go after breakfast, good luck finding a lawn chair. Tip number 2, the longest line you'll see, that's probably whether it's at full capacity or just any capacity at all because they're very popular, is the water slides here. So the water slides here at Wonder of the Seas were packed. And so that line was healthy and long the entire time. And sometimes it took you 30 to 45 minutes in that line to go down the slides. So that may not sound like all that bad, but when you are moving on the ship, that wind can get pretty cold and you're up there in your bathing suit, freezing, waiting for that line to move. And so our suggestions on how you maximize the water slides at Wonder of the Seas is 1, go as soon as you get on ship. So on embarkation day, put your stuff down, go to the water slides before the crowd gets there. Or 2, once you get back from one of your port activities, so you're in Cozumel, you're in Honduras, etc., you come back to the ship, go right away to the water slides before the main crowd gets back on their ship and those lines start to fill up. So the other activity that there did have a healthy line the entire time we're there, again, we were on a 7-day voyage at Wonders of the Seas, was the Flow Rider Surf Simulator. And so that surf simulator is free. And so they did have public sessions. They also had private that you could actually pay for and get a reserved spot. But those free public sessions had a long line. So each person got a set number of minutes in the actual flow ride simulator. And so that line didn't move very fast and didn't accommodate a whole lot of people. And so if that is something you want to do, maybe you want to book the private session. So whether you're doing the stand-up surfing or the boogie boarding, and or maybe you want a lesson, book that private session to guarantee you can get in there. However, that was pretty much it. Everything else on the ship had no wait or no problem getting in. So we're talking about miniature golf, no problem. We're talking about the splash pads. We're talking about the kids' playground, no crowds. We're talking about the 10-story slide called the Abyss. There was no line, so we went up and down all the time. If you're talking about the carousel, trying to get into the arcade games, etc., there was plenty of things to do, and he had no problem doing it. So if you want to go to the basketball court, you want to go to the ping pong table, even at full capacity, you have plenty of activities to do here at Wonders of the Seas. So the next big topic we want to talk about when we're talking about a ship at full capacity is the dining. So can I eat what I want to eat when I want to eat it? So on Wonders of the Seas, with 7,000 people at full capacity during spring break, we actually had no problem doing it. So there are several different reasons for that. So one, they had a ton of different options on the ship so that you could pick from what type of option you wanted to do. So they had 2 different buffets, they had the main dining room, and they had several different specialty dining. So specialty dining, just for those who have been there, are dinings that you have to book in advance, and you have to pay extra for them, so they're not included in your original price. And so if you want to do that, we do suggest you booking those early prior to even getting on the ship, because those fill up super fast, especially the hibachi grill. So as we talk about dining, let's take a second to dive into the 2 dining reservation systems with the main dining room. So you have the traditional reservation system between 5:30 and 8, so only 2 choices. And we didn't get that because those book up super fast. And so if you are interested in having the traditional reservation times of 5:30 or 8, book those as soon as you can. So that's oftentimes several months before you actually get on the ship. We were 2 days late from the actual opportunity where you could do that, and they were all booked out. So something that you should really put on your list, because you'll be surprised. You'll be hungry at 5:30, and 8, it might be a little bit too late. So we decided to do the other reservation system, and that was the My Time dining. That just allowed you to dine whenever you wanted to after 6:30. So at 6:30, you came in, you put your name and the number of guests in there, and you had to actually wait until a table was available. So when I say wait, you're not waiting for all that long. I think the longest time that we actually had to wait in the 5 out of 7 days that we went was 15 minutes. So this was super impressive, because by the time you got into your actual table, you were able to have your food instantly. And so they probably prepared it all ahead of time, but the food was great, the service was exceptional, and something you should consider when booking traditional dining or My Time dining. Both are free and complimentary, but there are 2 different reservation systems to know and how you can manage it with a ship at full capacity. The other topic in terms of full capacity in dining would be, are the buffets just absolutely flooded, and can they accommodate the large ship size of guests? And the answer is yes. So they had 2 different buffets on site. So they had the Solarium, so that's a little bit more of the nicer one, or they had the Windjammer. So the Windjammer is one that we spent most of our time, but they actually had a ton of food and was able to manage the crowd exceptionally well. And so we had no problem getting in, we had no problem finding a seat, and we had no problem waiting in line to actually get the food at the buffet. And we had no problem waiting on food. So when we wanted something there, they always had the food replenished right there and then. So super impressed with how they were able to manage the buffet. So something you should consider for breakfast, lunch, or dinner when managing through a ship at full capacity. So the next main topic in terms of expectations with a ship at full capacity was, can I get to the shows or the events or activities that I want to go to on the ship? So at Wonders of the Seas, they had several big shows. They had a big aquatic acrobatic show called Intense. They had a singing show called Voices. They had an ice skating show, etc. And so these were hosted in the main theater. And so those require reservations. So oddly enough though, it wasn't that hard to get reservations. So you can book these ahead of time before your actual cruise, or you can go to guest services on day one. That's what we actually did because the times or days we wanted to go weren't available online, but they did open up once we got on ship. So a little tip there for you as well. So all these big shows were actually played more than just once. So if you didn't get the first one, you can go on the second time that they actually showed it. So they did space some things out. And sometimes when they are showing it on one day, they have two different shows, an earlier showing and a later show. So plenty of time for you to make sure that you can go see all the shows that you want to. Plus, there wasn't a bad seat in any of the theaters. However, there is no reserved seating. So if you do want a particular seat or ensure that you get the best seat possible, I suggest you go 15 minutes early because those shows do fill up rather quick. So the last topic we want to talk about when managing expectations at a cruise at full capacity is that if you are interested in doing any specialty dining or specialty activities, so those are things that are actually going to cost extra, book those as early as possible because while we didn't do those because it wasn't in our budget, those actually filled up relatively quick. So book those as soon as you can so you can make sure that you actually get in there. So if you want to do a nice steakhouse at the Chop House or you want to go on the Hibachi Grill with your family, book in advance. If you want to take an exclusive tour around the ship, book in advance. If not, guaranteed they're not going to be available on that cruise at full capacity. So last but not least, we were overly impressed with the overall crowd management on Wonders of the Seas during spring break this year. We give a huge credit to the Royal Caribbean staff. So we had 7,000 people on our voyage and they had 2,000 crew members on site. And so the customer service and their way they could handle everyone's issues, complaints, etc., but also manage the crowds to make it not feel like that ship was at full capacity was truly impressive. So I'll be the first to admit, when boarding this cruise, I was a pessimistic one. I thought this cruise was just going to be absolutely miserable, flooded with long wait times. We're not going to get to do the things we wanted to do and just going to have an overall bad experience with all three kids complaining and whining, etc. And this was just going to turn into a vacation that was a waste of money. However, I couldn't be further from the truth. And so I was overly impressed with how well that this ship and this cruise line actually managed the crowds to make it feel like you could have still your own customizable experience on that cruise, not have to wait in lines, etc., and just have an overall great family adventure. So kudos to Royal Caribbean and Wonders of the Seas for putting on an immense and popular cruise and one that we're looking to go back to as soon as possible. So if you are looking for your next family adventure, we highly recommend you checking out Royal Caribbean. I'm sure any of their ships are just like this, but more specifically, Wonders of the Seas. This ship was absolutely incredible. If you want a full review on that particular ship, click the link above here. And so I'm Matt from the Adventure Buddies. And if you like this video, please consider giving us that big thumbs up. Hit that red subscribe button for more travel tips and adventures. And most importantly, remember, life's an adventure. Who are you going on with?